You just heard the sound of a bubble bursting. For an entire season, the WNBA sold us a story of explosive, record-breaking growth, a tidal wave of new fans lifting the league to heights it had never seen before. But when the lights came on and the championship was finally on the line, that story collapsed under its own hype. What happened at the 2025 WNBA Finals wasn't just a case of low attendance. It was a harsh market correction, a brutal reality check that exposed the uncomfortable truth behind the league's so-called success story. And the players, the very women who were promised the spotlight, were left standing in the dark. One of the league's biggest names, A'ja Wilson, finally couldn't take it anymore. Her frustration exploded for the world to see. Today we're connecting the dots, from those shockingly cheap $35 finals tickets to the players' raw emotional reactions to the hard economic truth about Caitlin Clark's true value to the league. This is the story of how the finals fiasco didn't just embarrass the WNBA. It proved the system is fundamentally broken. If you believe, like we do, that the story behind the story matters most, make sure to hit that like button. It tells us we're on the right track and fuels our next deep dive into the narratives the league doesn't want you to see. All right, let's set the scene. Because the reality of what happened in Las Vegas is even uglier than the headlines let on. This was supposed to be the pinnacle of women's basketball, the WNBA Finals. The powerhouse Las Vegas Aces are facing the battle-tested Phoenix Mercury, a celebration of everything the league claimed to have built. Instead, it looked like a crime scene. The first alarm bells rang when analysts noticed something bizarre in the ticket market. For a championship series, seats should have been premium, maybe even sold out weeks in advance. But instead of soaring, prices collapsed. Verified resale sites showed tickets for as low as $35. On social media, it got worse. Viral posts claimed fans were walking into the arena for $6. Then came the images. Shot after shot during the national broadcast revealed rows upon rows of empty red seats. What was supposed to be the league's crowning achievement looked more like a preseason scrimmage. And for the players, the ones who'd poured years into reaching that moment, it wasn't just a marketing failure. It was personal. Imagine it, the biggest stage of your career, and half the seats are empty. For A'ja Wilson, a four-time MVP in the face of the Aces, the disbelief was written all over her face. Sources inside the arena said that during warm-ups, she stopped, looked around at the vacant stands, and muttered under her breath, "This is the finals?" That wasn't arrogance, it was heartbreak. The realization that the league's biggest game didn't matter to the people who were supposed to care. When she finally spoke after the game, her voice wasn't angry. It was quiet, composed, but cutting. The kind of quiet that says more than 1,000 shouted words ever could. "We're playing some of the best basketball out there," she said quietly. "But it's like nobody's watching." That single sentence captured the entire nightmare in one breath. The players were putting on a world-class performance and doing it in a vacuum. For A'ja Wilson, the moment was about disbelief. For Diana Bonner, the Phoenix Mercury veteran, it was about rage, pure, unfiltered, and impossible to contain. She didn't just field questions at the post-game presser. She fired back. Hard. "You work your entire career for moments like this," she said, her voice sharp with frustration. "And you just hope people care enough to show up." Then came the line that became the emotional heart of the entire finals fiasco. "It's disrespectful. Awful. We are worthy of crowded arenas." Let that sink in. This wasn't just irritation over a half-empty stadium. It was betrayal. These women had been sold a promise of growth, respect, and finally, recognition. They were told that years of sacrifice had built something real, that the world was finally watching. But when the moment came when it mattered most, the seats were empty, the cameras were indifferent, and the dream they'd been sold evaporated under the lights. Their anger wasn't just about attendance. It was about a broken promise. And that emotion, the heartbreak in A'ja's disbelief and the fury in Bonner's voice, is the key to understanding what really happened. Because their outrage didn't come from one night of bad marketing or a few cheap tickets. It came from something much deeper. It came from the collapse of the Caitlin Clark illusion. Here's the truth. The WNBA's so-called historic 2025 season wasn't built on steady, organic growth. It was built on a single phenomenon, Caitlin Clark. For months, she was a one-woman economy, packing arenas, smashing viewership records, and drawing tens of millions of new eyeballs to the league. The WNBA rode that tidal wave of attention and sold it as league-wide progress, a rising tide lifting all boats. But the finals exposed the lie. 2 elite teams, multiple MVPs, the championship stage, and yet, they couldn't move tickets for more than the price of a pizza. Meanwhile, every insider, analyst, and fan knows the brutal truth. If Caitlin Clark and the Indiana Fever had been in that arena, those same $35 tickets would have easily sold for $300 or more. That's not speculation, that's economics. The finals didn't just fail. They revealed the uncomfortable reality. The league's growth wasn't collective. It was Caitlin Clark. And when she wasn't there, the whole illusion came crashing down. Caitlin Clark's impact on the WNBA isn't just additive, it's foundational. She's not some lucky bonus driving short-term buzz from casual fans. She's the pillar holding up the entire structure. The dominant narrative that flooded social media said it all. No Clark. No crowd. The league mistook the gravity of one superstar for the stability of an entire solar system. And when that star disappeared, everything collapsed into a black hole. Empty seats, broken promises, and a cold reality check that the WNBA's moment might not be as secure as it seemed. This wasn't an off night. This was a market correction. And it exposed a terrifying truth. The WNBA's future may be built on a single, fragile foundation. So where was the league's leadership while their biggest event unraveled in real time? Unfortunately, they became the punchline. At the center of that embarrassment stood Commissioner Kathy Engelbert. She suddenly found herself the face of the crisis after one clip went viral, a moment where cameras caught her leaving the arena, visibly shaken, as fans pointed out the sea of empty seats behind her. Whether it was frustration, embarrassment, or just bad timing didn't matter. The image spread everywhere, a symbol of a leader completely out of touch with the reality of her own league. That single clip crystallized months of frustration from both players and fans who've accused Engelbert of being tone-deaf and detached from their struggles. Even Nafisa Collier, the players' union VP, didn't hold back, saying, "This league has the finest players but the poorest leadership imaginable." And that's the real takeaway. Those empty seats weren't just a fan problem. They were a leadership problem. But here's where things take an even darker turn. Now we're officially stepping into rumor territory, but it's a theory fans have whispered about for years on Reddit and social media. And if true, it changes everything. The question is, what if the attendance has always been worse than it looks? There's growing speculation that the WNBA has been artificially inflating its attendance numbers for years. The theory goes that thousands of corporate or club-level seats are counted as sold even when they're empty, and that free ticket giveaways help fill arenas just enough to look decent on camera. But this time, even those tricks couldn't save them. The finals disaster was so severe, so visibly hollow, that it shattered the illusion. What fans saw wasn't just a poor turnout, it was the truth breaking through the facade. So what do you think? Was this just a one-time failure caused by Caitlin Clark's absence? Or did the finals accidentally expose a much bigger lie about the WNBA's real attendance numbers? Drop your theory in the comments below. Next, we'll look at one of the few pieces of data that might still offer hope, the television ratings. And yes, on paper, the numbers looked incredible. Game 1 of the 2025 WNBA Finals pulled in a massive one. 9 million viewers, up 62% from last year, the highest opening finals rating since 1997. But here's the catch. A single number without context is a dangerous thing. That rating wasn't proof of a thriving league. It was the phantom echo of the Caitlin Clark effect. A final pulse from a season where millions tuned in, not because they cared about the teams, but because they were still chasing the spark she left behind. This wasn't engagement. It was inertia. Fans gave the league one last look, and what they saw was an event with no energy, no soul, and no Caitlin Clark. The real metric wasn't the one. 9 million viewers. It was the $35 tickets nobody bought. That number told the truth. Without Clark, there is no sustained audience, no emotional investment, and no economic foundation. And the timing of this collapse couldn't be worse, because as the WNBA heads into high-stakes collective bargaining talks, this finals fiasco just handed the owners their most powerful weapon yet. For months, players have been demanding higher pay, better conditions, and a bigger share of the revenue. Now, owners can point to those empty Las Vegas seats and say, the market has spoken. The league's own championship, its supposed crown jewel, couldn't even fill a lower bowl without its star attraction. And that brutal visual evidence undercuts every argument players make at the negotiation table. A'ja Wilson's anger, completely justified, but it may also have been a strategic disaster, a moment of truth that inadvertently gave the owners all the proof they needed that player valuations are detached from market reality. And that's where Sabrina Ionescu's reaction comes in, not as petty jealousy, but as a window into a deeper crisis. What we're seeing now isn't just emotional outbursts. It's a fracture, a brand war inside the WNBA itself, personal rivalries, market envy, a cold war between those who create attention and those who depend on it. The empty seats, the outrage, the leadership vacuum. They're not isolated problems. They're all symptoms of one devastating truth. The WNBA mistook the gravity of one once-in-a-generation star for the health of the entire system. A'ja Wilson's explosion wasn't just about being ignored. It was the sound of a superstar realizing the market had shifted, that her worth and the worth of every player around her had been redefined by the absence of a single rookie. The bubble didn't just leak. It burst. And now, everyone's standing in the wreckage trying to figure out what's real value and what was just hype. So what's your take? Was A'ja Wilson's frustration a justified cry for respect? Or a brutal reality check for every player in the league before the next round of negotiations? Drop your verdict in the comments. And if you believe, like we do, that the real story is never the official one, subscribe and hit that bell. We're already deep into our next investigation, and trust me, you don't want to be the last to know. And finally, if someone you know only saw the drama, not the truth behind it, share this video, because they deserve to understand the real power struggle reshaping the WNBA from the inside out.